I was a spectator of the seminar, and I realized there were two different links. One link to be a speaker and with a video like now, and the other link to just be following. So I was listening to Maxime and Johanna. So thank you so much, 16. Thank you.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you were able to join us on the right link, because we'd love to hear you as well. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
So my name is Günther Pauli. I'm for some people known as the author of the Blue Economy, really an economic model that is fundamentally different from the green economy, where we expect people to pay more to be able to do good. In the blue economy, use what's locally available, and we transform the economy because we're better and not because we are against something, but we are introducing products and services that are not sold because they're the cheapest, but because they're the best. And that doesn't mean you're expensive. So I'm an entrepreneur, have set up quite a few companies in my life, and I'm committed to fundamental transformation. And thanks to Carlos Moreira, and I'm pioneering the NFT world.
That's very good. You're very welcome in the NFT world, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I just need to do some house cleaning here first. I need to inform everybody that this webinar is being recorded, and that we will have the recording on YouTube shortly, within the next 48 hours. So, if you want to listen to us again, you're more than welcome. The other thing that I want to invite the audience is to ask as many questions as you like by using the Q&A or the chat box down below. And if you don't mind, esteemed speakers, I'll ask the questions as they come up, so that we can do this a little bit more unofficially and in a friendly manner. So we about to begin. So I said before, it's about smart connectivity through education, culture, and of course science. And Günther, I know that you also write children's books, so you sort of cover the whole spectrum from governments and university students right down to toddlers. I think that's great. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about your experience in China and the books, and how that would help to educate?
I think the biggest challenge we have today is that we're lacking a lot of talent. There is talent available, but we need so much more talent. And talent for me is the capacity to have great technical and scientific knowledge, but with a lot of enthusiasm. And what we need is the enthusiasm to really embark on completely new things, which will steer us towards sustainability. And so what are we missing? Well, we're missing really an insight in nature. I mean, how is it possible that the sperm whales can talk to each other, using a language of syllables, and we didn't even think they were speaking? So I have immersed myself and went apnea diving with the sperm whales to see if I could perhaps learn some sperm whale language. Because we need to pioneer new frontiers. Or we look at the humpback whale, and we realize that the heart of a whale can pump 1,000 liters per pulse with 6-volt direct current. So tell me, which pump is operating at 6-volt direct current? Talk to any engineer, they will say you're absolutely cuckoo. I mean, there's no pump that will ever do that. Oh, and then my response is, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, but there are about 1 million whales in the ocean doing exactly that. So I try to bring these stories to children, because you talk to the engineer and they will say, not possible. You talk to the kids and they will say, oh, yeah, I mean, if my parents don't think it's possible, don't worry about them, I will do it. And the amazing thing that happened is that I had written already 36 stories, fables, with animals talking to each other. It was used in the Brazilian education system, and the Chinese noted it, and they said, why don't you try with us? I mean, Chinese children, they would love that. And they said, we love your passion, we love the emotion. We Chinese are so boring. We're always so factual and so official and so calculated. And the result is that today, I have 324 of my children's stories, fables, in 795,000 schools in China. So somehow the Chinese said we'd like the first 36. Why don't you write another 36 and another 36? And I've just delivered the last series. And you know, this is what is important. Inspiration. We need to inspire people to go beyond the obvious. And that, on the other hand, cannot just be a pure dream. It has to have a solid scientific base. So when I delivered the mathematical modeling that allows us now to recognize 600 words used by the sperm whales, all of a sudden, the algorithms that allow us to understand sperm whale bring us into a complete new world of communication with other species. Now, that's fascinating. I mean, that's
absolutely
a world where I am not only excited myself as if I were a little child, but it inspires me to go to the next frontiers.
And I would say that nature tells us anyway, birds know when a tsunami is coming. So if we can understand what the animals are telling each other, we might be able to prevent or protect ourselves a little bit better in case of these sort of, you know, weather forecast scandals. Joanna, you're dealing with a lot of artists and art students as well. Do you find that they're open and willing to embrace the new technologies and the scientific approach to things, or are you finding it difficult to break the ice?
Yeah, I think I would say yes as the short first answer. I think there's a lot of interest in technologies and new developments. I think what we have been seeing is a lot of interest in a greener future, and a future also where man is not always central, but as you were also saying, Gunther, thinking about nature, thinking about technology, having these three different sectors also be in symbiosis instead of competing or in a pyramid structure with each other. I think there's a lot to explore still in the technological developments we're seeing at the moment. I think there are a lot of amazing usages for it, but it isn't always as necessary
or as immediate, like as
exactly.
Obvious. Yeah, I suppose. Max, you were talking about devices on buses that would sort of warn us about pollution excesses, or you know, if something wasn't normal. How about using animal and nature to give you the messages? Do you think that would be of interest in the future as well?
Well, look at the name of our startup. It's Sparrow. Moreover, we have some patent pending methodology, which we call Sparrow flock communication, where we allow boxes to communicate with each other. And thanks to artificial intelligence, we will be able to make better connectivity. But I actually wanted to quickly emphasize on something else, because Gunther, very much nice to meet you, and you have an amazing experience. I share it very much. The problem is that this whole inspiration story sometimes end up with the problematic of the gap between what the innovation can do within certain environment and what government or authorities can allow and accept to do. And the problem is that every innovations that come into this sector always find themselves in the same problem, where they're trying to fight the system. And I think that this is what we did when we started our initiatives in the city. The first thing we try to build is a bridge between what people want to do and what they are aware about, and what actually municipality and authorities can provide and can agree for. So it's a big bargain, and it's a big work that needs to be done in order to create this bridge between the little people and citizens that really wants to have innovation, they want to have inspiration, they want to have birds, they want to have trees. Go figure out if you can plant a tree today in the city. It's really a big problem. If you want to have a tree literally planted in the middle of the streets, it's a big problem. And we're trying to tackle this problem, and we require and we need everyone that is not following the rules and trying to go outside of the box and be inspirational, and we can support them with the inspiration by creating a certain framework and the smart zone, what we call, where governments and authorities would accept what is usually not certified, not under legislation, not under certain conditions, and they can see, and they see that there is no harm, there is no problem to work with it, and they can accept it. So I think there's a very important, what I'm trying to say is there's a very important thing to notice, that we live among those problems and those issues that needs to be tackled on the daily basis, and find those bridges and to connect in between them. And this is where actually our little birds coming into the place, and not just only measuring air pollution and noise, but also creating this amazing bridge between the gap between these problems that I just mentioned.
Maxime, if you allow me, very interesting your mention of what is allowed and what is not allowed. Let me tell you about our philosophy. If ever there is anyone in the room saying that this is not permitted, I ask the person to get out of the room and let those who will make it happen do the job of making it happen. I'm not interested in what's permitted or not permitted. I'm not interested. I prefer to violate the law, because laws that were designed 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 years ago just have no sense. And sometimes, you know, I accept paying the fines and even being threatened by a judge, because sometimes you need to wake up people that there's another reality. I give you an example. When I created in 1992 the first zero emissions factory, actually close to Antwerp in Malle, just 15 kilometers north of Antwerp. I was born in Antwerp, so I was touched by the fact that you mentioned my home city. And you know, I said, you know, my factory will have no waste. We will treat all our liquid, solid waste, our air pollution. We'll treat it all ourselves. We'll be a zero emissions factory. And then the government came to me and said, you know, it's impossible. You have to have a connection to the sewage system. If you're not connected to the sewage system, we will not give you a permit to operate your factory. Excuse us, gentlemen, I'm treating all my waste myself. So condemn me. I will not get connected because I am zero emissions. No. The rules specify that you have to be connected. Okay, so bad for you. Fine me. Give me a fine. And of course, it's sometimes you have to challenge the system. Now, you can't challenge the system too much, because then you're considered a revolutionary and you may get a bullet in your head. That's not
especially in Antwerp.
You know the problem with security in the city at the moment. But I give you another example just to exemplify the case. You know, I paid my workers to come on a bicycle to work. And the result was that they said, oh, but this is tax. This must be taxed, because I said, come on, why do you want to tax someone who's riding the bicycle to work, when the guy who's coming by car to work, I can compensate, but he's polluting. So the guy who pollutes can be compensated and gets a tax deduction, whereas the guy who's getting healthy and being in good shape by cycling to work and gets compensated for it must be taxed in it. The end of the story is I had to pay a fine for not paying Social Security on these payments. So I was happy to be condemned. But then Belgium became 1 year later, thanks to this very big injustice that everyone recognized, Belgium became the first country in the world where you have a tax deduction for riding the bicycle to work and getting compensated. Now, the story is, if we don't have people who challenge the system and you submit yourself to the system, we're not going to have the innovations we require.
I can, I'm sorry, Joanna, I will just reply for that, and we let your part to join the discussion. But first of all, I'm extremely touched by the Antwerpen story, because I fell in love with Antwerpen during the pilots that we initiated there. And I can tell you that back in 1998 or beginning of 2000, that was the case. The situation right now with administrations and with people who responsible are changed. It's the new people. I have to tell you, the eldermen of Antwerp, they're extremely great. They're very open and welcome, but still they are locked in the very old legislation and very old approaches. But if you come and you don't challenge them, but you help them and you lead this revolution, if you wish, in a proper way where, like I said, they accept you. You allow them to use your tools and you allow them to make this revolution without being, without people being damaged. Because at the end of the day, this whole system is receiving taxpayers' money, and they expect that the taxpayers' money will not be spent on things which are not okay with the general public. At the same time, they're looking for the innovations. They want to change the situation. They fed up with everything that's going on. At the same time, when you look at the bicycles in Antwerp, you see that they very often can be found just by the huge traffic and people sitting on the bicycle, literally breathing this whole NOxes and CO2 without actually having control on the proper traffic management. And this is where we come into the picture. But again, what I'm trying to say is that like blue economy, I don't know if you had the chance to read the Finance 4 study, but it's exactly it. It's the transition from the Finance 2, where we had fiat money, where we had a lot of banking involvement, and then via Finance 3, which is Ethereum, Bitcoin, and this first initiative into the Finance 4, which is the globally oriented coins for incentive models, where you have people that can be incentivized and rewarded for the action. This is the directions that obviously I support, and I think we all agree on that in that case. Sorry for such a long answer, but yes, this is where
it's fascinating. I'm sure everyone's loving to listen. Just to get back to Joanna, who's more, I don't think you're dealing too much with government policies, even though I have a story in the art world where Australia wouldn't let me in with I was taking over a worldwide exhibition of Picassos, and they wanted to spray my frames and my crates because they were wood, and in Australia you can't take in any wood. So I said, you're not spraying any Picassos of mine. So we had a bit of a discussion, and I got through in the end. So I tend to agree with Günther that if there's a no, it's a challenge to turn it into a yes. But do you find that with, for example, insurance policies and also airlines now, that you can use any type of crate in packing, or are you finding difficulties in having things that may not be the usual or the norm?
No, I think that has evolved a lot over the past few years. There have been reusable crates around Turtlebox, a Dutch company, for I think 15, 20 years. But there have been new players like Rockbox from the UK, and more are being developed. And it has been fine for a while to use these instead of the wooden ones. So as a context, instead of having a crate that is fitted to an artwork, actually it's a one size that can fit different sizes of paintings, artworks in them, or even two. And I think Rockbox is even working or has developed a 3D version of that. So that has been an option. I think the most interesting case recently was the greater adaptation of sea freight for the art world. So this is something that we have been pushing, other companies have been pushing, nonprofits have been really trying to steer galleries towards sea freight, which seemed like a great option during COVID. But once the backlog came of all these boats, it actually appeared that this was not really adaptable to the quickness of a lot of the commercial art world and the fairs and the galleries. But in that sense, there has been work with art insurance companies to make this accessible and to make this possible, and to create a list of standards that would have to be followed by the companies, the boats, and the containers to check to make it safer to travel this by sea. I remember hearing that the way containers are checked if they are watertight is literally someone walking into it, closing the door and seeing if light comes in anywhere. So there were problems like these that had to be tackled a bit if you want to start shipping high value artworks. But these discussions definitely happen on different levels. It's about combining, on the one hand, understanding the needs of the galleries from a big one to really a small one also, to employing or getting the art insurance involved. It's all global because no art is really national, especially if it ships. And I think a key concept here, which is something that was brought up before too, is the solutions, sustainable solutions have to be cheaper or the same price, and they have to be something that is manageable as an extra, as hopefully not as something extra to do in the normal logistical process of a gallery. So these are key elements here.
User friendliness is very important. You're right. I think data collection as well, and that's where WiseKey comes in a lot with its. We're launching all these Pico satellites around the world, and I know that Günther, you've got this vessel Porima who's been tracing, but you're also filtering the waters, and you're doing all sorts of good as well as just shipping. And I remember talking to you, and you were saying that you're trying to prove to get around the world on just with the kite and the solar energy in 80 days, which would help in the speed of things. But of course, the staff at the port, at arrival and at departure needs to be trained as well. But so how are you going with that, Günther? Is the boat on its way now? I know you've had a few issues, but you've had other previous experiences where you said that you could make it in the 80 days.
So 16, we have this experimental boat, which is called Porima. And Porima is in Greek mythology, she is the goddess of the future. She is the protector of pregnant women. Okay. And Porima is our boat. In English, the boat is a she. Yes. It's very interesting. In French, it's a he. I think the Brits got it right this time. I mean, she is a boat, she is a lady. Porima is for us an experimental ship that has already done 95,000 nautical miles, first for 2 years, only with solar, circling the world with solar, but it took 2 years. Then an entrepreneur added the opportunity to use hydrogen and to use an intelligent kite, and the hydrogen made from seawater. So quite a revolutionary way of thinking on how we can solve one of the most polluting industries ever, which is the maritime transport industry. So we have inherited this incredible experience of being able to sail with hydrogen from seawater, intelligent kites catching wind at 200 meters, and solar. And when we look at these realities, there is one immediate reflection in my mind: industrialize, industrialize, industrialize. How come this is a unique ship? Why are there not hundreds of these ships? And then, of course, the hard reality is that if you make and create this ship from hardly anything, that you spend tens of millions of euros. But if you industrialize it, your cost goes down to 4, 5, 6 million euros. So yeah, we know that we need to have volume in order to get the prices down. But you have to realize that we can never industrialize these novel scientific integrations, because it becomes an integration of several technologies, unless you have people trained. I mean, if I would ask Johanna, do you remember the last time you operated a kite? I mean, or even you, Maxim, you have played with a kite on the beach, right? I mean, at some point in time.
Sure.
I mean,
yes,
we all did that. And if I ask you, when was the last time you played with a yo-yo? Yeah.
Oh, last year.
Yeah. See, and Maxime, you played with a yo-yo as well, right? I mean, 16. Have you played with a yo-yo?
Absolutely.
So here we go.
She's 16.
You know, we have this inherent knowledge about a kite. When you want the kite to fly, what do you need to do? You need to pull. Now, when you're pulling a kite to let it go up, what are you doing? You're creating wind. Okay? So here we have all these experts who check where is the wind, whereas me and you, as a little girl or boy on the beach, we know that we pull a few times the kite and we create our own wind. Well, this is exactly what novel technology is very often all about. But the problem is, we have become so reliant on this wise technology, not referring to wise Kina, to this wise technology where there is a lot of sensors and there is a lot of artificial intelligence, whereas our common understanding is that by making a few pulls, you can indeed create the wind power. And if you have a yo-yo, what is really the power of the yo-yo? That we learned when we have to do this, right? You remember? Click. Yep. And if you're 1/10 of a second late, the yo-yo just drops down. You're right on time, the yo-yo keeps on going up and down. It's an amazing thing. So what I'm trying to say is the following. How do we combine an intelligent kite with a yo-yo technology? Because the kite goes up and down and is generating power. Power on the boat, power on the land. How many operators do we know trained to be making a yo-yo and a kite work together? None. We got barely 5 people in the world who know how to do this professionally. How can I industrialize if I don't have the people? And that is the real bottleneck I feel. I can get over the permits of the governments, but I need really a new generation of people who embrace jobs that never existed before. And that is a jump into the air. That is the unknown which we embrace because we are inspired and motivated to do it. So we want to industrialize very novel technologies, integrate them together. But if we don't shift from education to inspiration, we're not ever going to get the people to operate and make this a reality.
And what about security and all of this? Do you need to protect your research and is that a problem? And do we do it online? Do we protect it with this blockchain or NFTs? Or, is that going to be hacked one day? Or do we just share it all out like the community says these days?
16. When you're a child, I mean, again, I want to go back to the little childiness. When you're a child and you're enthused about something, what is your first reaction? Share it with your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never known a child of 6, 7, 8 years old that figures something out and says, let me first write a patent. Let me protect the trademark now. I mean, kids don't do this. This is automatically we share. So I do believe, 16, that we do have to have a very fundamental commitment to sharing for the common good. The sharing for the common good has to become part of our philosophy in life. I mean, who wants to become filthy rich on saving the world? I don't. I mean, I have no interest to make money on saving the world. I mean, it's an ethical commitment that we have to work on. So no, I'm not worried about the IP. No, I'm not worried. I want to share. But I will compete not by protecting. I will compete by sharing and accelerating.
And growing,
go faster. I mean, it's the speed with which we have to operate. And so when we're looking at Porima, we have now 1 boat. We've decided to build 3 new boats. I can't wait to figure out when am I at 100 boats, and when could we be at 1,000 boats? Because there's 60,000 cargo ships going around the world, polluting more than all the cars combined, polluting more than all the planes combined. And are we just setting objectives for 2050 to be net zero? No, that's not possible. Accelerate. So share, but accelerate.
All right, fair enough. And then hopefully the art world, and I met Max through the art world as well. So I know you're a little bit of an art lover at heart, even though you're now Sparrow and green or blue ecology. But yeah, hopefully that the sharing will also be part of the general corporate world, and in particular the art world as well. Do you find that, Joanna? That they're changing their ways a little bit about transparency and, you know, like all being in the same boat? As if, excuse the pun, that wasn't meant to be.
Yes, for sure. I have a cat that wants to be part of the conversation too. So if you hear him, I'm sorry.
More welcome.
But yeah, I think this was one of the biggest shifts that we saw over the past few years. There was an acceleration of a consciousness to become more climate forward, climate positive, neutral, depending on which terms you want to use, but just in general, thinking more about the impact of the art sector at large. And accelerated by COVID, these galleries and museums started sharing. And I think this is really at the key of what we are doing too as a knowledge center. We are bringing together resources, experiences. We're hoping to push people, museums and galleries, to also share how it has been for them to go through a carbon audit, or to try to ship by boat, or to change the climate in their museum. Because I think what you were saying, Gunther, too, is we have to stop reinventing the wheel all in our own little sector. And once we feel comfortable enough to share, and also share the mistakes, not only the successes of what we've done in the past, it's on the whole level of the art world that we're moving upwards and forward. And it's interesting, one of the projects we are working on now is the new sister organization of ArtSwitch, is called The Vertical, which is going to be this go-to online platform for everything sustainability and art related. So as a lot of the knowledge is being dispersed at this moment through the different nonprofits organizing or working in the sector, or in the different languages it might be, or just on the different platforms in general, we are creating The Vertical to be this search engine / database of anything that's out there. And hopefully this will also be another push towards this transparency and collaboration, because we are all in it together.
Yeah. I know, Max, you work with EPFL. Gunther does too when he's in Switzerland. Do you find that EPFL also shares with internationals, so that the education is more widespread and Gunther can find staff all over the world rather than just Lausanne?
Yeah, listen, I have absolutely delighted and amazing experience working with EPFL. Every person that I deal with or talk to, from student up to professors, they're absolutely amazing. They're extremely smart. Always feel a bit awkward in their presence, but in many cases, they really need to get out of the laboratory and to see the real world. And this is where we come into the picture, where we using all the knowledge, all the experience locked down in the laboratory. We take this out and we allow these international collaborations. We actually work with MIT as well, and we work with IMEC, that maybe, Gunther, you're familiar. It's Belgian-based university. Yes, IMEC. And we actually, again, creating this connection in between, because we're taking everything they do and we're trying to implement for the day-to-day usage and activities. So EPFL, indeed, it's an amazing place to work with. I also participated in some occasions being a jury for some master students, and I was completely devastated by the level of those guys. They created a project that looks like absolutely done startups that can go out and raise a lot of money. And all those projects of all those young people, they all about incentive, and they all about reward, all about responsible behavior. And for them, it's not something that they learn, it's just the rules they live by, and they use this on the daily basis. And I think that it's very important to pay attention of what they're doing, how they trying to implement their knowledge, and to help them out, simply maybe even sometimes not disturb them, to do the right thing. So I'm pretty much sure that we have a...
Yeah, that's very, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. It's very encouraging, to say the least. And as I say the word encourage, I'm encouraging the audience to pop down their questions. At the moment, they're probably also fascinated that no one's got any questions or time to write them. But yeah, the floor is open to questions. My question to you guys was, now we sort of almost touched on the metaverse a little bit, and the next Web3. Joanna, you were saying that people may not be shipping art anymore, but maybe sending out images or projections. Günther, I know, is using NFTs to raise funds at times, and also to raise awareness. And by the way, the NFTs of the solar panels, which have gone 100,000 nautical miles, are available. And so you can have your own little piece of Porrima up on your roof or out in your garden. Or where would you put it, Günther, if somebody bought the panel?
Well, first of all, you can put it in your own little metaverse. That is a first parking opportunity, just the digital rights in your metaverse. But we will have in 2 years the physical panels available as well. We very often forget how solid things are often made. I mean, we're so much hearing about fast fashion and junk. But the solar panels we have on our boat from 2010 still have 75% of their recharging capabilities after being exposed to 4 times around the world. I mean, it's quite an amazing performance. And these panels will keep on working. They've been very specially encased, and that is key to know. But you see, what I believe we have to insist on with a lot of the NFTs, it has to have an emotional value. It's not just the hard fact of this is the panel that went around the world. No, it's the fact this is the first time ever solar power took a boat around the world. Now that's emotional. That is because I want the world to change, and I want to have a little piece of history, and I want to have a little piece of this incredible experience that it was possible to beat all the odds and get around the world, not with a little boat. I mean, it's still a 100-ton boat. It's still a 35-meter yacht. It is not a tiny one, but it is something that sets a clear reference. We've done it. And that to me is very key in the world of NFT. So where do I want to put it? Well, I want to put it something where I can share with my friends. I can point to it and say, look at this one. This is a panel from the boat that was the first one in history to go around with solar. This is key because it becomes ours and it's us. And the saving of the world and the transition into our society is not for the leader on his own, is not for the pioneer who sets the record. It has to be us, and I believe that the NFTs allow us to involve more people at this emotional bonding level of us. And that's what I appreciate so much in this initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And Joanna, maybe also in the museums, if they're upcycling a little bit their energy level, their energy usage and NFT, I mean, in solar panels and things like that. I think the NFT is also very much the way to go for ticketing, for archiving, recording their archives and showing the world the art that's locked away in vaults and whatever, because there's just no room to show it. Would you agree with that?
I think to a certain extent, yes. I feel like we've only seen the tip of the iceberg of what is possible with this new technology. I think it's interesting, the storytelling and community aspect that was brought up, and that I'd like to underline again is there are great examples of museums making NFTs, like the Whitworth Gallery in Manchester, I think, was one of the first to make these NFTs of William Blake and sell them and to gain money for community organizations. I believe WiseArt also has quite a few of these type of projects, which I think is such a socially engaged way also to consider these NFTs. As ArtSwitch, we are exploring also the idea of having articles as NFTs and having the metaverse as a space that we could use to reach new communities and have new collaborations. So thinking of almost like a bookshelf that we could implement in different galleries, exhibitions, hosts really in the metaverse, and create a conversation, a critical conversation about the topic that they are showing, giving a bit more background to it, or being able to bring this sustainability aspect into the discussion. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there for, as much on the academic side, knowledge, new ways to share it, to share knowledge, or archives was something you were bringing up, but also the community aspects of ticketing. I mean, this is something we are thinking of also. Our next conference in 2023 is going to be about digital sustainability. So as much the impact of NFTs, the digital art world, this whole new huge art sector we have developed actually over the past few years, and then linking it also to the physical art world and seeing how these technologies are offering new solutions to the impact of the physical art world. You just mentioned the digital copies. I think there are great developments in that sense, but really thinking of it as not something that is only separate from the physical art world, but combined and influence each other. And actually for that conference, we're also exploring the idea of, could the tickets be NFTs? And does that create more community? Do people feel more engaged if you tie them in that new way too? So yeah, a lot to be discovered still, 60.
Yeah. Max, did you think that this metaverse thing is going to be a part of Sparrow as well in the future?
Absolutely. We just rebranding the digital twin approach, because we, being a startup that working with governments, we trying to provide standardization process, and we're part of International Telecommunication Union in Geneva, which is part of UN for standardization purposes. And we're leading our own standard. At the same time, we created a group of digital twins 3 years ago. And now it's tend to be changing into the metaverse, where we're simply going to use virtual cities to provide with real data about the pollution and create different scenarios about what's going to happen if for 1 month you don't have a rain also. And, we never thought it's going to happen in Geneva, and it did.
Yeah.
So recently we had between July and August, exactly 1 month without the rain and extreme hot temperature. And we did measure, and we saw a lot of problems coming from the infrastructures, the heat islands. The city requires more trees, the city requires more wind, and the city needs to take different actions, and important to receive this data, not to talk about Sahara sand and other problems. And of course, we're still absolutely lucky to live in Switzerland and enjoying such a great level of almost absence of the pollution. But while we're moving across the border, and not to talk about developing countries, we actually heading to India right now. And of course, taking actions in such a huge city such as Bangalore, for example, before making a certain assumptions and testing in the metaverse would not make any sense. It's an amazing tool. You just need to use it properly. You provide it with the proper data, and then it's become an absolutely tremendous, and not just an Oculus that I have with my kids at home to use it only every evening, literally.
Yeah.
But then is indeed, we are absolutely, it's our working tool, if you wish, only on daily basis.
And again, it will help all about sharing. We have a question here from Anthony. It's a question directed to Günther. So there's a child who challenged the Indian government named Aditya Dubey and he won and led to the confinement of 26 million Indian people at this time. He wasn't even 18 years old. Do you think that such behavior could be emulated in European countries? And it's good that you just talked about India, so it's very relevant. And thus, do you think that the revolution could be initiated by teenagers?
I think they're the only ones who could do it.
There you go.
I mean, I think you need young people who don't have the background and who don't have the political correctness. I mean, look, the biggest example of political correctness is the COP meeting every year. I mean, everyone is politically correct and everyone declares it a success. But climate change has never been in a worse condition after 26, 27 COP meetings. I was at COP 1, 2, and 3. Now, when I don't have a result after 3 meetings, I don't go to the 4th meeting. And somehow we succeed in keeping meeting and meeting and meeting. And every time we have to recognize that the results are just not achieved. I mean, results meaning abating climate change impact. And we're not. It's getting worse and worse. So it was Einstein who said, you know, when you do more of the same and you expect better results, then I consider you stupid. You know, there was Einstein who considered stupidity related to expecting more from doing the same. So let's be clear. We need a fresh approach. We need a creative approach. We need a no-nonsense approach. We need to have an imaginative approach. And that means that the ones who are best equipped to do that are those who have no experience and no money. Because if
no money is always good for innovation.
Yeah, I mean, my God, if you have no experience and no money, then you are ready to change the world. And starting with what? Your own world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jean-Claude Biverde said something very similar. When he was running Hublot, he's got 4 children who are young adults now. And he said, I will help them, but I will not pay for them to do it. Whatever they want to do, I will help them, but I won't pay for it. So there we go. It's true. Well, I think we've come almost to the end. Go on, Joanna. Sorry.
Can I? Yeah. I'm interested about the solar panel boat and also wondering if you have been thinking about applying it to airplanes. I'm sure you're familiar with was it the airplane Solar Impulse, I believe, the one in 2013 that was, I think they stopped at prototypes. But having an airplane completely powered by solar panel, is that a way you see the boat going into too with the technology you've been developing?
So, of course, when you have a 100-ton boat, you need a lot of energy. I'm happy to report to you, Johanna, that with a mix of technologies today on the boat, we have too much energy. Isn't that nice? We got too much. And that's because we are not depending on one solution for one problem. We're combining different solutions with the mix of resources that are available. With a plane, I am a very active fan and supporter of Raphaël Donjean in Switzerland, who is going off with his small electric planes. I will be on one of the inaugural flights from Toulouse to Barcelona on the 1st of October. So I love that. But I make my own little contribution with another project of ours, and that is powering planes with fuel produced from microalgae. Do you know spirulina?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So spirulina is good to eat, but if you have a very productive system, spirulina creates a very good oil, which is ideal for jet fuel. And so we are actually at this moment preparing the first jet fuel installation made from microalgae. And the microalgae, you can basically press them and you have jet fuel. You know, keep it simple is one of the wonderful campaigns that have been led a few times. Keep it simple means that why do we need to crack and have a very expensive refinery when you, on the other hand, can have these wonderful microalgae that produce you a fuel, an oil that is wonderfully combustible in jet engines. So yes, we are involved. Yes, we think this is the way to go. And if all goes well, next year we'll have the first small planes, propeller planes, operating on spirulina fuel.
It sounds good, except then we won't be able to eat it anymore, and it's healthy for us.
No, 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 no. I'm so happy that you responded, 16, because this is it. We only take out the oil. Everything else that is good, you still have it.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys, thank you very much. I'll give you the word at the end. Before that, I just want to remind our audience that the next webinar is on October 12th. And it's a little bit more bling, I suppose, but it's about the same subject, and how can the celebrities help, and how is the social media and the people who are not normally regarded as scientists or whatever, how can they help as well, and are they important, and do people listen to them? So that will be with a team of entertainers called Indra Putra. They've done a collaborative songs. They've also done songs in NFTs, and they are being backed by Steve Wozniak. So hopefully we'll have the great honor to have him along as well. And that's on October 12th at 6 p.m. So Joanna, as the lady of the house, would you like to close off for me?
Yes, I will. I think just to thank you. It was really exciting to talk with both of you and with you, 16. I don't have any other closing words. I'm just excited to see all these projects come together and see what's happening next year with both of you.
Well, we'll certainly be in touch anyway. Max?
Thank you very much. I hope I wasn't part of the art discussion, but contributed just a little bit. And anyone who wish to learn more than happy to get in touch via LinkedIn or directly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joanna. Very much nice to meet you, Günther. Hope not the last time we meet, and hopefully in person. Thank you very much.
Cheers. And Günther, we'd love to hear you.
Well, I think let me end with a more philosophical approach. If we want to change the world, we better have a great story to tell our kids every day. Every day. Tell them a great story that will blow our minds, and that will be so surprising that we want to know more. We're bombarded with so much bad news, 16, so much bad news all the time. And I think we need to inject this positive, creative approach. And the best to do is tell a great story to a child before he or she goes to bed, and the world will change. Thanks.
I think everybody will listen to that one. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon. Bye.